Hello everyone and welcome to our channel Mootechie. Today, we're diving into an exciting topic, Ionic Equilibrium. We'll explore electrolytes, acids, bases, and the theories behind them. I'll guide you through each concept with clarity and care, so let's get started. Now let's begin with electrolytes. Substances like acids, bases, and salts, which can conduct electricity in their aqueous solution due to ionization, are known as electrolytes. The presence of ions in the solution is responsible for conduction. When current passes through wires, it shows the movement of free electrons. This process of dissociation and flow of ions in the aqueous solution of an electrolyte is known as electrolysis. For example, the electrolysis of sodium chloride in its aqueous solution gives sodium and chloride ions in the solution. Now let's visualize this. The diagram shows an inert electrode setup with aqueous sodium chloride. We see labels like C1, C2, H2 gas, C3, hydrogen oxide, and C4. This represents the electrolytic cell where chloride ions and hydrogen gas are produced at the electrodes. Moving on, did you know? There are many electrolytes present in the human body, such as sodium, magnesium, calcium, potassium, chloride ions, and bicarbonate ions. These electrolytes are involved in various functions of our cells and organs. The main electrolytes in body fluid include sodium ion, chloride ion, magnesium ion, calcium ion, and potassium ion. Each ion has its own role, and body movement is a result of the function of these ions. Now let's look at some examples of electrolytes. We have strong acids like hydrochloric acid, nitric acid, sulfuric acid, and others like hydrobromic acid and perchloric acid. We also have weak acids like acetic acid and carbonic acid. On the base side, we have lithium hydroxide, sodium hydroxide, potassium hydroxide, and others like calcium hydroxide and barium hydroxide. Next up, strong electrolytes. Some electrolytes like potassium chloride, sodium hydroxide, and sodium nitrate are completely ionized into their constituent ions in solution. These are known as strong electrolytes. In other words, strong electrolytes are 100% dissociated in their aqueous solution. For example, potassium chloride dissociates into potassium and chloride ions. Ammonium nitrate gives ammonium and nitrate ions. Nitric acid breaks into hydrogen and nitrate ions. And sodium hydroxide gives sodium and hydroxide ions. Strong electrolytes like salts are composed of oppositely charged ions. In the solid state, these ions are held by strong electrostatic forces of attraction. But when dissolved in water, the attraction between ions is highly weakened due to the high dielectric constant of water, which is 80. Let's now look at a list of strong electrolytes. We have chloric acid, sulfuric acid, hydriodic acid, hydrobromic acid, hydrochloric acid, nitric acid, and others. The list includes both acids and bases that dissociate completely. Now what about weak electrolytes? Electrolytes that are weakly ionized in their aqueous solution are called weak electrolytes. In their solution, the constituent ions are in equilibrium with undissociated molecules. Due to partial dissociation, the number of ions in a given volume remains almost the same, even with large changes in concentration. For example, acetic acid reacts with water to form hydronium ions and acetate ions in a reversible reaction. This type of equilibrium between ions and unionized molecules is called ionic equilibrium. The fraction of molecules that dissociate is represented by the degree of dissociation. Generally, weak acids and bases are good examples of weak electrolytes. Some common weak electrolytes include 1. Acetic acid, 2. Hydrocyanic acid, 3. Ammonium hydroxide, 4. Ammonia, 5. Hydrofluoric acid, 6. Carbonic acid, 7. Mercuric chloride, 8. Chromic acid, 9. Boric acid, 10. And nitrous acid. And there are others you can refer to in the table. Now let's talk about non-electrolytes. Non-electrolytes are substances that cannot conduct electricity in their aqueous solution due to the absence of ions. They are generally polar or non-polar covalent compounds that dissolve in water as molecules, not ions. Since covalent compounds contain covalent bonds between atoms, they cannot be ionized in solution and exist only in molecular form. For example, sugar and alcohols are soluble in water but remain in molecular form only. Here are some examples of non-electrolytes: sucrose, glucose, ethanol, methanol, carbon tetrachloride, and others like urea, glycerol, and carbon dioxide. The table includes many more, such as kerosene, pure water, and sulfur dioxide. Now let's move on to the Arrhenius concept of acids and bases. In 1884, Swedish chemist Svante August Arrhenius proposed that acids and bases can be defined by the chemical species they form when dissolved in water. Arrhenius was awarded the 1903 Nobel Prize in Chemistry for proposing that ionic compounds can divide into oppositely charged particles in solution. According to Arrhenius, an acid is a substance that has a hydrogen atom and can release it as a hydrogen ion in aqueous solution. For example, when acetic acid dissolves in water, it forms acetate ions and hydronium ions. The diagram shows the structure of acetic acid, highlighting the carbon and oxygen atoms involved in the ionization process. In the same way, hydrogen chloride acts as an Arrhenius acid in water. It converts to Cl ions by transferring a hydrogen ion to water. The reaction shows HCl donating a proton to water, forming hydronium and chloride ions. When Arrhenius acids are in pure state, they are covalent compounds, they don't contain H ions. Ions are formed through interaction with water. This process is called ionization. The image illustrates ionization. Starting with an Arrhenius acid molecule, it breaks into a hydrogen ion and a negative ion. Now let's discuss the strength of Arrhenius acids. Based on ionization, acids are classified into two types. Strong acids are completely ionized and give the maximum number of protons in solution. Their acid dissociation constant Ka is very high. Examples include HCl, hydrogen nitrate, and hydrogen sulfate. Weak acids are partially ionized. Their Ka values are lower. Examples are acetic acid, carbonic acid, and phosphoric acid. Let's look at a table of acid dissociation constants. Other values are listed for reference. Now, what about Arrhenius bases? An Arrhenius base is a hydroxide-containing compound that produces hydroxide ions in water. The basic species here is the hydroxide ion. For example, sodium hydroxide dissociates into sodium and hydroxide ions. Potassium hydroxide gives potassium and hydroxide ions. Ammonium hydroxide breaks into ammonium and hydroxide ions. Strength of Arrhenius bases also varies. Strong bases dissociate completely in water to give OH ions. Their base dissociation constant, Kb, is very high. Examples: NaOH, potassium hydroxide. Weak bases are partially ionized. Their Kb values are lower. Examples: ammonium hydroxide, calcium hydroxide, aluminium hydroxide. Here's a table of base dissociation constants. For instance, ammonia has Kb equals 4.75. Aniline has Kb equals 9.37, methylamine has Kb equals 3.38, and pyridine has Kb equals 8.70. Other examples like codeine, morphine, and triethylamine are also listed for reference. But the Arrhenius concept has limitations. It could not explain the acidic or basic character of substances like nitrogen trihydride, sodium carbonate, CaO, carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, which don't contain H or OH ions, or the reaction between an acid and base in the absence of water. This brings us to the Bronsted-Lowry theory. In 1923, J.N. Bronsted and T.M. Lowry independently proposed that acids are proton donors and bases are proton acceptors. The reaction is shown as Ha plus Z rightwards harpoon over leftwards harpoon A plus Hz. Examples: HCl donates a proton to water. Water donates a proton to ammonia. HCl donates a proton to ammonia. So an acid is a proton donor and a base is a proton acceptor. Important results: HCl is an acid because it donates a proton. Nitrogen trihydride is a base because it accepts a proton. Water acts as both an acid and a base. It's amphoteric. To identify acids and bases, count the hydrogens before and after the reaction. If the number decreases, it's an acid. If it increases, it's a base. In reverse, we can identify conjugate acids and bases. For example, hydrogen carbonate plus hydrogen oxide, right? Pointing arrow. Hydrogen carbonate plus OH. Here, hydrogen carbonate is the base, hydrogen oxide is the acid. In reverse, hydrogen carbonate is the conjugate acid, OH is the conjugate base. Now, let's understand conjugate acid-base pairs. A conjugate acid-base pair differs by one H ion. Examples: HCl and Cl form one pair. Hydrogen oxide and hydrogen oxide form another. Nitrogen trihydride and NH4 also form a pair. These pairs help us understand proton transfer in reactions. The Bronsted-Lowry concept has several advantages. It includes ionic species as acids or bases. It doesn't require an aqueous medium. It explains the basic nature of species with no OH ions, like nitrogen trihydride or sodium carbonate. But it also has limitations. It can't explain the behavior of compounds like carbon dioxide, sulfur dioxide, or sulfur trioxide that don't gain or lose H. It doesn't explain the basic nature of hydroxides like NaOH or KOH. Now, let's explore the Lewis concept of acids and bases. In 1923, G.N. Lewis proposed a broader definition: an acid is an electron-pair acceptor, and a base is an electron-pair donor. This removed the need for hydrogen in acids and included many more substances. A Lewis acid is an electron-pair acceptor. The accepted electron pair is shared in a covalent bond. For example, metal cations like Mg² or compounds like aluminum chloride are Lewis acids because they have unfilled orbitals and can accept electron pairs. The diagram shows a Lewis base donating electrons to a Lewis acid, forming a covalent bond. Types of Lewis acids include molecules with a central atom having an incomplete octet, like Bf3 or aluminum chloride. Simple cations like Ag or Cu. Molecules with empty d orbitals, like silicon fluoride or phosphorus pentachloride. Molecules with multiple bonds between atoms of different electronegativities, like carbon dioxide. A Lewis base is a substance that donates an electron pair. Most oxygen or nitrogen-containing organic compounds can act as Lewis bases because they have lone pairs. Types of Lewis bases include neutral molecules like nitrogen trihydride or amines. All negative ions like FCl-OH. Here's a list of Lewis bases. Alcohols like ethanol, ethers like dimethyl ether, amines like trimethylamine, carboxylic acids, aldehydes, ketones, esters, amides, sulfides, and even organotriphosphate ions. Strength of Lewis bases can be measured using basicity scales. For example, oxide ion has high Lewis base strength, fluoride ion also has high strength, chloride and acetate ions have moderate strength, nitrate and perchlorate ions are weaker. The table lists many anions with their base strength values for reference. Finally, the Lewis concept also has limitations. It requires the formation of a coordinate bond. Many Lewis acids don't contain hydrogen, so they lack the catalytic activity of H ions. And that brings us to the end of our session on ionic equilibrium. We've covered electrolytes, acids, bases, and three major theories, from Arrhenius to Bronsted-Lowry to Lewis. I hope this was clear and inspiring. Thank you. See you in the next class.